Taylor Swift went to Wyndcroft Academy. Arts and music that was done there led me to have my love and passion for music. This little tiny girl that would step out there and all of a sudden, boom, this big voice would come out. Everything was perfect until I turned 15. My father filed for divorce. 6 months later, ended up meeting a young lady, my sister's best friend.
Oh,
She was a senior and I was a freshman on the varsity cheerleading squad, and it became this crazy scandal. I started going out and I found boys, and unfortunately I found this one specific boy. He gave me this drug. It was crystal meth. Getting involved with drugs, you want to blame everybody and everything else.
drugs, alcohol, sex, gambling, you name it, they're hacks. Discipline through meditation and prayer can create highs that are even better.
People ask, well, what were you addicted to? And I have to be quite frank, more. That was my addiction, more of everything. I'm an extremist, so it was all or nothing. People say to me, why can't you have a glass of wine with dinner? Because you're so disciplined. I'll start looking for cocaine. It's just innately within me. I used to joke with people, I need 5 martinis to just get me steady in my heels before I go out. This NA, this AA, it's not working. This is so emotional because it was the turning point. I said, if you deliver me from this, I will tell everybody for the rest of my life that it was you and you alone. I surrendered to God and I never looked back.
It's a very, very difficult thing to deal with. What doesn't kill you makes you stronger.
Even in the midst of my drugs and alcohol, I'm a very positive person. I would go home, be in pain, but I didn't show that to the world. The whole thing with Charlie Kirk, I think that was a really huge example where we are in dark and light entity battle. The song Good Day, if you listen to the lyrics, it's about spiritual warfare. I wrote it from the valley. A lot of other Christian artists, they're on the mountaintop. I wrote it way down in the valley, knowing that God could take me to the mountaintop.
You and your husband sold everything, moved to another country.
He got deported back to Venezuela. When we were planning on getting married, things were fantastic. I sold my house, packed up absolutely everything. As I was leaving the country, they deported me. No re-entry for 5 years. When I came back, I had nothing. I pawned my diamond ring. I started doing DoorDash. God gives his toughest battles to his strongest soldiers. Keep marching on. Just keep marching on and going. The end of the story always turns out pretty doggone good.
Today's episode of No Surrender will stir your soul. Our guest, singer Amy Lord, has lived a life that almost reads like a movie script. Private school, big dreams, a voice that could fill the room, and then everything changed. At just 15, her family shattered, her world flipped, and one decision led her into a 22-year battle with addiction, drugs, alcohol, sex, anything that could fill the void. But that's not where her story ends. It's where it begins. In her darkest moments, after heartbreak, loss, relapse, and hitting rock bottom, God pulled her to her knees and rebuilt her life from the inside out. She recently celebrated 20 years of sobriety, living with purpose, using her voice to inspire, and proving that valleys don't define you, they refine you. This is a story of surrender, redemption, and no surrender. So buckle up, get ready, and let Amy Lord remind you that no matter how far you've fallen, there is always hope and there is always a way back. We will also tell the story about how Amy was so crucial in pushing us to create no surrender sooner rather than later. This episode is brought to you by our partners over at Don't Trade It In. It's the best and fastest way to get top dollar for your car from the comfort of your home. Please visit don'ttradeitin.com today. We have Amy Lord joining us today. She is a critical part of the No Surrender story here. Honored to have you on the show. We wouldn't even have kicked off the show as quickly as we did without that conversation you and I had a month or so ago. It's probably been maybe a little bit over a month now, but I guess just to let everyone know, Amy is a Christian singer, and she also works in the car business along with my team and I. She helps us with a lot of the finance related stuff. That's how we met on the one hand. On the other hand, I was talking to Amy one day about this idea that I had to create a place where people could share trials, tribulations, and comeback stories. And I wanted to do this at some point in the future. Amy was like, have you heard of tithing? And I was like, tithing? And actually, even though I'd been to church growing up, I had not heard of that word, or I didn't remember hearing that word, in the Bible for whatever reason. I know it's in the Bible now that I've researched it, and Amy's taught me a little bit about it. But anyway, Amy let me know that even if I didn't have money to donate at the time, that I could donate time. And time is super precious to me. And the only thing you can't really buy more of these days is time. So donating my time to help people is a sacrifice for me. And we're hoping that these like real life examples of bad things that have happened and the great stories of overcoming those obstacles will help others. So, with all that being said, that is, we wouldn't be here without you, Amy. So, thank you for that.
Thank
And
you. Thank you. I really appreciate it. It's an honor for me to be here,
yeah,
for
yeah,
sure.
absolutely. Absolutely. You're welcome. And we like to kick things off with just kind of the basics. Like if you could tell us a little bit about your childhood, growing up, that kind of stuff, and then we'll go from there.
Well, I was born in a very small town, Pottstown, Pennsylvania. Probably nobody's heard of it, but there are some good commodities from Pottstown, Pennsylvania. There are Kiwi shoe polish and Mrs. Smith pies. So those two things came out of there. There are also some prominent private schools, and I was a third generation Wyndcroft Academy attender. My grandfather, my father, and my sister and I went there. So I found out recently that Taylor Swift went to Wyndcroft Academy too, which is
Wow.
unbelievable. So I had a very nice upbringing to be able to afford private school. It is a privilege. I was studying Latin when I was, I think, 4 or 5. There were a lot of arts and music that was done there, which really led me to have my love and passion for music and the arts. So that was an amazing opportunity. My father was in construction, and he had an interesting story because his father died quite young, and when my father was young, and he died young as well. But my grandpa, who was a drummer, who everyone says that I got my musical gifting from, died with $1 to his name,
Oh my gosh.
$1 in his pocket. And my dad laminated that, and he's got that and keeps it in his pocket. But so my father's father, my grandfather, died when my dad was 12 years old. And my father was the youngest, and he just kind of assumed the role of taking care of everyone. And he was a hustler. So when I watched your story, there were so many similarities because he was out there doing whatever it took to take care of the family. And he became extremely successful at a young age. My mother and father, they had 2 children by the time they were 21.
Wow.
So very interesting story. I had all of these amazing things. I was a straight A student, kind of golden child. I was in musical theater in the community. I would get the lead roles. My dad always talks about the fact of me being this little tiny girl that would step out there and all of a sudden, boom, this big voice would come out. And he was like, kind of blown away. He describes one time where I had this show and he was sinking down in the seat, scared to death for me. And then I came out and just nailed it. And he was like, that's my girl. So everything was pretty perfect for my upbringing. I was a national level competitive gymnast, and that was amazing. So I was very dedicated. I was at Wyndcroft, and then I would walk down to the gym, and I would be in the gym for hours. So my family was very supportive of my gymnastics, and I took piano lessons for a short amount of time, which led to my ability to be able to songwrite. And as I said, everything was perfect until I turned 15. And when I turned 15, my father my parents were fighting probably 14, 15. And then my father had filed for divorce, and about 6 months later ended up meeting a young lady. And it was devastating because it was my sister's best friend.
Oh,
Yeah. And he ended up leaving. Crazy thing is, that was when I was 15, and they're still together. They're still together. I'm 57. So they've been together for 42 years. They have 3 kids, they have grandkids. It was beautiful. It ended up being beautiful. So it turned around. However, it was devastating because I was on the cheerleading squad with Lori, who's now my stepmom. She was a senior and I was a freshman on the varsity, on the cheerleading squad. And it just became this crazy scandal. My mother, who I haven't spoken about much as of yet, was completely devastated because she had never, ever had a job, anything. She just was a stay at home mom. So the rug was kind of pulled out from under her. Didn't know what to do. She was lost. So my dad's gone. My mom's a wreck. And what did I do at 15? I started going out and I found boys. And unfortunately, I found this one specific boy, and he gave me this drug in like this little piece of paper. He said, "Why don't just try this because you'll be able to stay up all night." Well, I tried it. I had no idea what it was, but it was crystal meth
Oh,
in
wow.
that little paper. Yeah. So that's where the drug abuse started. It was really difficult to navigate that time. I would walk into my friend's house and see family pictures and just, oh, it tore me up. It tore me up to see that the unity of these families that were together, and then mine was just devastated. So I told you the beauty of the turnaround with the fact that my dad and Lori are still together. I have three brothers and sisters from them. I don't consider them step or half. They're my brothers and sisters. And I just need to tell you the beautiful part of my mom's story. My mom ended up going back to college. She graduated summa cum laude. She became a CPA and ended up being a office manager and accountant for OBGYN practice with 12 doctors. So she became extremely successful. She married a gentleman who was a senior engineer from Bethlehem Steel in Pennsylvania, who actually, you'll find this interesting, worked on the X-type Jaguar.
Oh, wow.
So yeah, they were married for a long time. Unfortunately, Bill passed, but they had a long marriage. So it turned around. Everything was good. But that's my upbringing.
Yeah.
Interesting, right? It's a lot.
Yeah.
So things took a turn for the worse for me at 15 because I just, my grades went down and I just struggled from that point. I lost my footing.
Yeah. And that's, if you watched my episode, I used the words, I developed a wild spark, at 15. And very interesting time, when you're at that point in your life where, especially for the guys, the hormones are really kicking in. Girls they're kicking in too, that they're dealing with all sorts of stuff, things changing. And then, yeah, when you have a very, very what feels like a solid foundation with a family, and then something big changes, and you're a kid on the one hand, but on the other hand, you're making adult type decisions. Like I got into some trouble, did some stupid things, and I accept responsibility for all those things. When you're still a kid, you're affecting the adults in your life, and you're affecting your siblings if you have any, and it can get wild quickly. So yeah, as you mentioned or wrote after you watched my episode, there's definitely a parallel there. I can.
There are a lot of parallels between our stories for sure, and that 15 was very significant because it is a crucial age. Everything is changing. For me to have had my first taste of a drug was crystal meth. Unbelievably bad. Unbelievably bad. I got addicted quickly, very quickly.
Wow. As you said, scandal. So you got that going on with so you were probably 16 or so. Your sister was 18, which means your stepmother is
Same age. Yep.
she yeah,
So
gotcha.
my dad was 39 and she was 18. And dad's about to be 80. We thought it was a joke at first. We thought it was a joke. And I just recently had a conversation with my father because my father said, I hate that you think that I left your mom for a younger woman because I filed for divorce 6 months before I ever even met her. But when I met her, it gave me the strength because I thought I had another opportunity at love. And I said, Dad, I don't fault you for that. At the time when it's going on, and especially getting involved with drugs, you want to blame everybody and everything else. But there came a point in time where I couldn't blame anybody anymore. I had to make some choices to take responsibility and turn things around. And it took me 22 years to stop drugs. I had 5 years of sobriety at one point and then went back out there. So, you know, when you get involved with drugs and when you become a drug addict, you are suppressing pain. That's all it is. It's just like anything, shopping, food, sex, whatever the case may be, you know, working, overworking can be, you know. So I have to be honest, my addiction went across the board. People ask, well, what were you addicted to? And I have to be quite frank, more. That was my addiction, more of everything. I'm an extremist, so it was all or nothing. And that has been tremendous for me as far as success, because when I am in, I'm in. Like with my job, I'm very committed, but then it can be the detriment too, because if I'm in and I'm in the realm of something that's not positive for my life, it can be extremely detrimental. But I will say this, because I keep saying negative and then I keep reminding or bringing up the positive. October 21st, I just celebrated 20 years of sobriety.
Yeah, yeah, I actually had that on my
Thank God.
list. Yeah,
So
congratulations on that. And you covered a lot of ground there. And ironically, so everyone knows we're recording this on November the 25th, and we launched an episode, our official first guest episode today with Mark Devine. And in that episode, we touched on the fact that drugs, alcohol, sex, gambling, you name it, they're hacks, right? So you can work your butt off in life to create natural highs, and you can create discipline through meditation and prayer that can create highs that are even better. It's working towards the ability to get there without the hacks, right? So,
right.
and we're here to help as many people as possible, whether it's alcohol, drugs, anything else that I just mentioned, or something else. And I'm the same way. I'm all the way in or all the way out generally. Like there's really no in between. And so when I went through my party phase, my motto was, life's not worth living if you're not having fun. But what I didn't know was that I didn't have to hack my way into having fun so much. You know, like it was almost like not a split personality, but I led two lives. You know, like I was this competitive athlete on the one hand, and on the other hand, I had a party crowd that I hung out with. And then, you know, as you touched on, when a traumatic event occurs when you're younger, we touched on that in another episode too. I think the episode that was Andrea interviewing me.
Right. Yes.
And so when considering that we're doing this to help others, like if you're watching or listening to this episode right now and you're in a similar position where you're drinking every night or doing drugs or both every night, and you think that you're okay, but you still are doing those drugs every day and or every night and or drinking, and maybe you're even functional, you're not losing your job, you gotta remember that you don't have to use the hacks or the substances to get to the point where you feel okay. You don't have to self-medicate, you know. And as Amy just touched on, 20 years she's been sober.
20 years. Can you imagine? And I was so dependent on anything. I mean, weed, alcohol, coke. There's not enough cocaine in the world. People say to me, why can't you have a drink, like a glass of wine with dinner? Because you're so disciplined. Why? Because I'll start looking for cocaine. It's just innately within me. So one of the things that I can tell you is when I was partying, I would start here and then I'd go here and then I'd crash. And all I wanted was to get back here to that balance. So why not just stay there to the balance? That is without the hacks, as you're calling them. You stay in that balanced, consistent lifestyle, which is so rewarding, amazing, the difference. And I was super high functioning. There was a point in time where I was working in New York City for Estee Lauder Cosmetics, and I was doing statistical management and marketing for them. And then I was part of the national makeup artist team. And I was going around to events and I thought that I had everything under control. And I portrayed that to everybody that I came in contact with. But then I would go home and I would, you know, drink a bottle of wine and get some cocaine or whatever by myself. And I was so sad because I never really dealt with some of the issues. And I wanted to just get back to being that golden child when I had the praises and the accolades of my family rather than the black sheep all of a sudden. Now I'm the bad one. You know, how did this little girl who was so good get so bad and cause all of us so many problems? So that was difficult. Then you have the pain of that because you've got these expectations from people because you set the bar high when you were young, and now you've fallen into this black sheep category. How can you ever get back? You've got your own personal shame and condemnation that's going on, and then you've got this everyone else around you telling you how much of a mess you are. But then there's God, because there's no shame or condemnation in Christ. So I have to tell you that I did, for the 22 years, I went off and on to AA, NA, all of that, but I never really got sober. I never really got sober. October 20th, when it was my last night of partying, I ended up going to a U2 concert. And before I even got there, I used to joke with people saying that I need 5 martinis to just get me steady in my heels before I go out. So I've drank like 5 dirty martinis and then I'm ready to roll. That night, I ended up having all kinds of fun. I had a blast. But the next day I had to be at work at Jaguar at 7:30 in the morning. I woke up at 9:30, maybe 10 o'clock. I had no idea where I was. I had no idea where I was. I had no idea where my car was. I was on the top of me, halfway clothed. And then I see this guy. I'm thinking, oh my gosh, what happened? Get me out of here. I got to get home. So I called a girl who could cover for me, and she covered for me. She's like, I already got you. I'm taking care of everything. I Ubered back to my house. I was an hour and a half from home. Hour and a half from home. So I am so late. This is a disaster. On the way home in the car, October 21st, the day that I stopped this issue, I'm praying. I'm praying that I don't lose this job. I'm praying. I'm like, oh my God, I know you want more for me, God. I know you do. I said, you got to show me how to do this. How can I do this? This NA, this AA, it's not working. When I got back to my house, I literally fell to my knees and just bowed down before God. And I said, this is so emotional because it was the turning point. I said, if you deliver me from this, I will tell everybody for the rest of my life that it was you and you alone. And that's what I'm doing right now. I'm honoring God by letting him and everybody know it was him alone. And when I got up from praying, I said, I am going to walk in the other direction. So when I went in, you'll never believe this, but I went to my general manager and I told him the truth. I said, I was out and I have a problem. And if you can just believe in me, I believe that I'm going to change. And he said, well, you just admitted you had a problem. So that's half the battle. And you're a great employee and I'm going to support you, but I'm going to hold you accountable. And I surrendered. You say no surrender, but you have to surrender to be able to get up. So I surrendered to God, and then I surrendered to somebody who could have taken my livelihood away, but he didn't. He supported me with that decision, and I never looked back. So
Oh,
it's an amazing story.
yeah, it is. It's beautiful. You probably can't see him on the camera, but I got the chills from it, and that's what we're here for. We want to share this with people, and especially those who are in similar positions or might be soon. Like when you think about that story, and I look back to times in my life where I was just way off track, and so easy to get off track, especially in today's world. So that was in 2005 for you. I got a DWI in 2002. So right around that same time, you and I were in similar places in our lives, and when you get a DWI, they send you to AA and stuff like that. And the very first thing I thought, the very first time they forced me to go to AA, in the very first class was, I don't buy the serenity prayer at all. I'm not going to admit or believe, forget about admit, believe, even begin to believe that I can't control myself, and because that's one of in the very beginning, allow me to accept the things that I can't change or that I have no control over or something like that, and that for me being all the way in or all the way out to tell me that I can't control myself, I was just out. I was out, but I was forced to go, so it's a very, very difficult thing to deal with, and Ironically,
Oof,
I just did that life DNA testing where they tell you all about what your genetics say, and sure enough,
right. I want to do that.
you should. It's crazy. Like sure enough,
You had the gene?
yeah, one of them is like the likelihood that you will consume a lot of alcohol or potentially become an alcoholic or whatever. It was like the extreme, like high, very high likelihood. And ironically, it also said that my resilience level was naturally not all that high. And it said that my ability to lose weight is really hard. And my weight has fluctuated over the years. But so when you combine those few things, very high likelihood of becoming an alcoholic with very, very, very high likelihood of becoming obese, and on a natural level, relatively low resilience. What it has done, or what God has done by building me that way, is I've become one of the most resilient people on the planet, and I am no longer overweight. I never would. I never ever would have, even though by the book definition I was an alcoholic because I consumed alcohol. You know, whatever they teach you all about that in AA. For
Right,
anyone
right.
who's watching this or listening to this and hasn't been, you know, they basically try to convince you that you're an alcoholic by the book definition, and by the book definition, many people are. You know, but anyway, it was really interesting to fight through that period, and it on the one hand, on the other hand, what doesn't kill you makes you stronger, and that was God's plan for me, apparently. And unfortunately, as you touched on too, for a lot of the people in my life, I wreaked havoc. You know, like they were
Oof,
worried
me
about
too.
me.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So anyway, sorry for the interruption there. I just
No, 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 no. We, the parallels are pretty uncanny. They really are. And when I watched your wife interview you, I was brought to tears multiple times because it was so relative to my life. And, I could see the things that you had gone through. And it's amazing, though, how you fall 7 times, you get up 8. That's really it. And I do want to say one thing, because there are a lot of people out there that NA and AA works for. It
Mhm.
did not work for me, and I'll tell you why. Even in the midst of my drugs and alcohol, I'm a very positive person. I would go home and privately be in pain and lick my wounds, so to speak, but I didn't show that to the world. So when I was at AA and NA, I did not like the fact that it was so sad and
Mhm.
morbid and all these stories. Like, to
Yeah.
me, I thought it should be something like, I used to be this, but I'm working on this, and here's, the great things. So there is something that I got involved with, which is called Celebrate Recovery, which is a Christian based kind of AA, NA 12-step program, and it's based on biblical principles. And it was a little bit different because even the wording, Alcoholics Anonymous or Celebrate Recovery. So it's kind of like with a funeral. When somebody dies, are you going to dress in black? Are you going to cry and mourn? Or are you going to know the truth? And are you going to have, I don't know what they call it, a celebration of life?
Yeah.
So that was the difference. And it became more effective. And once again, I have a friend of mine who's been sober for 35 years, still goes to meetings. He swears by it, sponsors everybody. And there are some people that is going to be the avenue. But across the board, the way to conquer it is to surrender and then never surrender to the new plan.
Right, right. Yeah. And that's, you and I have touched on it, but for those who are listening or watching that haven't looked at our logo, we've got the no is in red. And, you know, there's various, Amy and I have communicated about this too, but there's various ways to look at the logo on purpose, right? So the red initially was red, stop, like stop sign, stop light, stop, like never surrender to what's bad or an obstacle that you need to overcome. Or on a more biblical, or from a biblical standpoint, that's the blood of Christ, right?
Right.
And
Mm-hmm.
with surrender, it's white because that's the light, right? You surrender to what's good. You surrender to your God. And
Or the
it's,
white flag of surrender. Oof, I'm done.
yeah,
you
yeah,
know?
yeah. Yeah, so that's exactly why we're here. You know, we want people to not surrender to stuff they shouldn't surrender to, but find God and surrender to God. And I've been saying all along that we're not here to necessarily preach, but we're here to provide a path. We want to give true stories about ways people have found the light. And there's another episode that we recently recorded that will come after this episode airs. That's from a prominent attorney, and it's being an attorney. He knows the Bible forwards and backwards, and we got into some pretty specific conversations. Even though we're not here to preach, it's like what you'll learn if you're in a dark place right now and you're watching this or listening to this is that you might think of people that are talking like we're talking, like holy rollers, or maybe we're crazy because you're an atheist and you don't believe in anything spiritual. But what you're going to find out eventually is that karma is real, and what goes around comes around. Those are pretty much synonymous. And if you can get God in your life, spirituality in general, there's been studies that have been done that have proven that it's something like 43% of people who attend some form of church regularly the 43% is you are 43% more likely to be happy if you do attend church of some sort. So
Right.
just keep that in mind. Like if you're an atheist or you don't believe in anything right now, just go, a night class or something like that. If you're against the dressing up and going to church on Sunday, just find a way to get spiritual, even if it's reading books, reading the Bible. That's something that I'm going to be finishing the New Testament. I started at the beginning of the New Testament. I'm going to be finishing it this Sunday. Every Sunday I spend, almost an hour studying the Bible. That's something that I do because it's amazing. You'll start to see synchronicities, right?
Yeah.
So it's wild.
I've been doing it on my Bible app, I think it's 1,010 days right now, 1 hour every morning at 7:00 and reading multiple plans. And last year, I read the Bible in a year, and it was very challenging, and it was so amazing. But I said, okay, I'm just going to do different plans this year. So every other year, I'm going to read it. So as of January 2026, here we go again. I'm going to read it again. But I want to say one thing, because I have a lot of people in my life that are Buddhists, that are gay, that are, whatever the case may be. God loves every single one of us. Mm-hmm. And there is hope and there is a plan for all of us. I think the biggest thing is to know that there is something greater than yourself outside of yourself. Because if you're self-reliant, that's where you have the problem. That's what the drugs or anything else or ego or pride, you're relying on yourself. And I can tell you, that's what I did for years. I did that. I thought I was self-sufficient. Oh, I've got this. I'm a high-functioning addict. But the moment that I surrendered it all and put it in God's hands, that was when it changed. It changed at that moment. So it's letting go of self. I think that's huge. So if you are an atheist, if you are a Buddhist, whatever your lifestyle may be, there is just a surrender with what you think is the only way, and be open to something outside of yourself that's spiritual, that's greater than you. I have to tell you an interesting story. 2006, 2007, I was working at a dealership, and I had a young lady who was married woman, a lesbian couple. And she said to me, I really hear you talk about your church, and I would love to go with my wife, but we're scared. We're scared to go because we don't want to be chastised. And I said, well, let me do this. Let me talk to my pastor, and I'll tell you, I'll come back to you and, talk to you. When I talked to my pastor, he said, are you kidding? I will welcome them with open arms, but I will be clear that I will not celebrate the lifestyle. But they are loved by all of us and welcome. And this is what God and Jesus is. There is no judgment on anything. If that's what you choose, so be it. God has given us free will. And I chose the path of that crazy path for a long time, and I suffered. There were consequences. There were repercussions. I can tell you, just like things, snowball in a bad direction, they snowball in a great direction. You do the next right thing and things get incredible. So I don't know. I don't know where I went with that, but it's just a
No.
matter of God loves all of us. That's the point. And I've never been somebody who would exclude somebody because of anything. Because I feel like if we're going to show God's love, that we have to really go like the disciples. And why just be in church? You know, why not go to the places where maybe you're going to find the hurting?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And it's cool how these conversations flow. Like this is the, I don't know, probably sixth episode we're recording. We're not recording them in order. Your episode, this is a perfect time to tell this story. So, what are the odds that episodes 1 and 2 planned, like the first two commitments I get to the show? First episode is Mark Divine. Second episode is Amy Lord, right? So Divine
Yeah.
Lord, right? So like it's crazy, but it the conversations just they flow, right? Because we're having these conversations to help people, and it's amazing how they flow. So when you just told the stories that you just told, or the story that you just told, it reminded me of this book called The Surrender Experiment by Michael Singer, and we'll include information on it in the podcast notes and everything. But if you're in a dark place, and I think it was Troy Aikman that recommended this book. He definitely recommended the author. But anyway, if you are in a confusing place, this book is it's incredible. This guy, he's written several books, but in the Surrender Experiment, it's pretty self-explanatory. He surrenders to God, the universe. He's more non-denominational, and even like on a spiritual level, I don't know that he would even classify himself as a Christian, but he created what's called the Temple of the Universe, and it's like a tourist destination because he went from, in the cliff notes of this version, story of this version, is wild. He goes from college student to using some extra money his dad had left over for paying for more college education that he didn't finish or something like that to buy a piece of land in Florida in a really beautiful place. And one thing led to another because he didn't have enough money to pay a builder to build the property, or build a house or a building on the property. He comes up with the money to buy some materials, and then he and his buddies start building, and they create again what becomes the Temple of the Universe, and it just grows and grows and grows over time. And as a part of his surrender experiment, he just kind of lets go in almost hippie sounding kind of way, lets his soul go where the wind takes it, and he becomes a massive success, creates this software that helps medical clinics and organizations track billing and stuff like that. But his whole life it turned into this big surrender experiment, right? So
Mhm.
if you're in a dark place and you don't, maybe you don't want to go to church yet, maybe you're not ready for that. Maybe you don't even want to stop drinking or doing your drugs or whatever it is that your hack is right now. Just read the book or listen to the book because it's a great first step. Because as Amy said, and it might sound weird, especially if you're very ego driven, because she used both the words ego and surrender, right? Your ego, and we touched ironically on the episode that aired today, again, November 25th, Mark Divine, a lot on ego, left brain ego versus
Mhm.
right brain emotion, right? More
Right.
on the spiritual side. And when you realize that your ego is just part of your personality and there's something far bigger on the right brain, spiritual, subconscious side of things, then your life will start to flow. And it might not be immediately. I'm not gonna lie. I mean, I've been surrendering more and more and more, and I'm ready for the tides to really completely turn because it's been a long, hard fight for big chunks of my life. But anyway, yeah, it's cool how these conversations flow. And I think it would probably make sense. So if we go back to your story, so you go from 15 to 37 was when you stopped. So you had
Yeah.
22 years there. And at some between 15 and 37. And then at some point, you got into a performer, you said at a young age, but then you got into like some pretty serious singing. You had an album. So between that 15 and 37 time frame, if you could kind of tell us how you went from 15 and doing that first hit of crystal meth to
Oof.
sober in '05, like how was that ride?
It was rough. It was rough. It was a constant. I mean, there were times when it was fun and I was having a blast and I thought this is the greatest thing. I when I got the 5 years of sobriety, guess when it happened? When I was 21. You would think at 21 you want to go out, you want to go to bars. I was done. And I had 5 years from 21 till 26 and then back out again. And then it just kept from 26 to 37, 11 more years. But it was a blur. It was just, it was a constant chase. I was chasing this feeling to like void everything. The only thing that gave me any kind of relief was in 1995. I heard this album, Alanis Morissette, Jagged Little Pill. And this girl was writing about all of her pain and her emotions. I was like, oh, I can do this. So I created these notebooks and they were called my jambalaya. And I just wrote everything. And they were dark and they were crazy, but I started writing songs. And I don't think a lot of people know this, but when I was living in New York, and I would say it was 2000, I had my first record deal. That was not Christian music. That was with a division of Sony called Burn Records. And I was working with a really incredible producer, Bob Cutarella. I was recording and doing everything, and I got fired. So I finally get a record deal. I'm so excited. I'm performing all over New York, and I get fired because I keep showing up to the studio just a wreck. I keep going to photo shoots. They've got photo shoots that are planned, and I'm just like, ugh, I just did not look good. You know, it was not presenting the image that they wanted. And I shut my mouth. At the end, when that happened, I said, this isn't for me. It was so painful to get that high and then boom, it's gone. And I thought, wow, I'm never going to do this again. I ruined it. And then when that October 20th and October 21st happened, I got sober. 2 years after that, I ended up having a boyfriend commit suicide. And it was just devastating because I'm like, how did I not know that he was in pain? And one thing that I can say that was parallel to your situation that you had talked about, because wow, if you haven't watched the episode where his wife interviews him, please go back and do so, because I cried when you talked about how you wanted to go down to the bottom of the pool and just have your fingers be in the grates or the, what do you call it?
The drain.
The drain, in the drain. That was devastating. But anyway, when I found out that he had committed suicide, I took 30 days where all I did, I went to work, came back home and cried, listened to sad music, cried. And I wanted to die. I was contemplating suicide myself. I wanted to be with him. 30 days. It was horrible. Finally, this woman, I was working at Jaguar still. Now I'm sober, but this hits me. This woman comes in and she said, you've got to come to my church. I see your pain. Please. I know you told me you took, Jesus into your heart when you were 8. There, you can get back to this. So I went with her. And I'm going to tell you something that's crazy. So I walk into this church and I walk in and I'm just like, I get stopped. There are like 12,000 people. And there is this beautiful girl on stage and she's singing. And there's a rock band. And there is a full orchestra. And this girl is going to town. I'm getting chills right now. And for the first time in my life, I audibly heard God say something because I got stopped. He said, I'm going to give you another shot, but you're going to do it for me this time. I'm not going to write the songs about the sex and the drugs and the rock and roll. You're going to do it for me. And 1 month later, I was up on that stage singing at that church. And I wrote my first song, Have Mercy, shortly after that. And that is how I began my Christian music endeavor.
Wow.
So you were talking about like you want the tide to, change in a different direction. One thing that I've learned through everything that I go through, I never question God because I always believe, okay, you're writing my testimony because that's what he's doing. If we had not been through the things that we are going through and have gone through, how do you tell the glory of the beautiful opposite side. How do you tell the success? So we have to have the peaks and valleys. So when we're in the valley, we have to be able to know that we can get to that mountain top. It's not going to always just be on the mountaintop, but if we recognize and thank him in each of those circumstances, knowing that it's all going to ultimately work for our good, because had I had that mindset when I got fired from the record deal, I would have been just like, okay, there's something else coming. What is it? It's going to be good. And that's how I am now. And it's a difficult mindset, but it's one of those things in the Bible. It says, consider it all joy. We have to do it as hard as it is and as hard as it sounds, because the end of the story is, it always turns out pretty doggone good, you know?
Yeah, yeah, that's the, as I've said in other, I think in at least one other episode that we've recorded so far, he wouldn't put you through anything he didn't know you could handle. On the one hand, on the other hand, when you're marching through the valley of the shadow of death, that's Psalm 23 is it's been with me throughout my life. It's so hard when you're down there looking up, like at where you came from. It's especially, like Andrea, my wife, she she said in that episode that you referenced, or at what we call episode 0, where she interviewed me, it's been the most difficult 10 years of her life have been with me, and that hurts to hear. But then on the other hand, she says she wouldn't trade it for the world, so it's like this roller coaster ride, especially if you're ambitious, especially
Mm-hmm.
if you want to make a difference in the world. And not just, a lot of people don't know this, but the primary reason my automotive companies exist is because I'm on a mission to prove that you don't have to take advantage of people to make money, like in this industry
Right, right.
specifically. And it's, as you know, being, spending a lot of your career in the
Mm-hmm.
automotive industry, it's incredibly difficult to compete with the big sharks if you're a dolphin swimming in this tank. And they don't even think twice about taking advantage of customers, and they'll just spend the money on marketing to find new customers to burn. So
Mm-hmm.
if you're competing with these 10,000-pound gorillas all day, every day, and we're in one of the most competitive markets in the country, what works for some dealers in rural areas doesn't work for us at all. The type of advertising that works in other places doesn't work for us, and that's the same in a lot of industries. But we're on this mission to prove that you can still operate in this industry and be honest. And it's incredibly difficult.
Fully aware of that, because with the used car sales, they typically think, oh, just for you today, I got a deal. And that kind of sleazy, connotation that comes with that. However, integrity can be side by side in this business, and it's transparency, it's full disclosure. And the company that I'm working for is just that. And it's not, profit is not a dirty word. It's okay. Profit is not a dirty word. God wants us to be enriched and have, a good life, and wants us to be able to be charitable. Time, treasure, tithe, whatever the case may be. But it's a matter of price gouging and, just taking advantage of people and things like that. So I'm right there with you. I believe that integrity can be in this industry. My hat's off to you, and you'll see that in the end it will be the thing that will win.
Yeah, yeah, one way or another. I
Right.
It's as you said, the happy endings they come. It's just sometimes you got to be down in the valley a lot longer than you expect. And
Mhm.
as we've already touched on, it builds strength. It also builds character. I guess back to your story again on I definitely didn't know about, so were you like rock and roll? Was that the,
It was a band called Raw Sugar, and that was the name that I came up with. I was raw and sweet, so it was kind of a mix of a description of my personality. And of course, on the front of the album cover was some sugar that was poured out with a guitar pick that made it into a line. So it was just it was exactly what God did not want for me to stand for. And I can tell you, some of the songs were incredible. Incredible. I wrote all the music. I've been writing since 1995, like I said, and I've written hundreds of songs. The songs were incredible, but I've since changed the lyrics, because some of them were just the music that you would not want your child to listen to. Just a lot of what's out there is just, it's trash. And so it was trash. It was trash. It was good music. It was good lyrics for that arena. But no, as sad as I was when he pulled the plug, I was like, wow, you want to use me? You want to use me, but wait a minute, this girl just got off of drugs. How can you use me? God made it very clear to me that that's why he wanted to use me. So you've, said that he doesn't give you more than what you can handle. But I've also heard that God gives his toughest battles to his strongest soldiers. So you've got to keep marching on, just keep marching on and going. And that's where the no surrender comes in. But yeah, it was rock and roll. And yeah, so it was a lot of crazy stuff. I had the privilege of singing one of the very last shows at CBGB's in New York. I don't know if you've ever heard of it. It's a famous spot where a lot of famous people sang. So I did a lot of great stuff. I've done a lot of great stuff with my, music throughout my life. But I can tell you that the reward has been so much greater with the Christian music a lot. And I have a second album ready to go, but I've had a lot of life circumstances that have kept me from that. And I believe fully that there are times that we get under attack and we are being forced to be quiet and not be able to speak, because I believe in the devil and that Satan wants to not have us do things like this, not do what I encourage you. No, you've got to do it now, because we get this negative thing in our mind. We're not good enough. Maybe it's not going to work. Maybe it's going to fail. Should I really do this? Things like that. And I've had circumstances where they've set me back, and I've got a full album ready to go of incredible music that I know is going to touch people's lives. I'm hoping and praying for 2026 that this is going to work out for me to do this second album. I'm believing, even at my age, because I don't believe that there's an age on any of this. As long as you stay healthy, you try to maintain vibrancy and all of that, I think I can still do it. My voice is fine, so.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. So, okay, so we go from rock star to that was what year did you say that was again with the first
With
album?
Burn, that was like 2000, 2001.
Okay. So then 4 years later is
I
when,
get sober.
yep. And then the second album, technically, so there was a first album with Burn. Is that right?
It never came out because I got fired from the job, but I have some incredible recording, because I was in great studios in New York. I mean, I was working with it was a division of Sony. So it was incredible what was happening. I was so excited. I thought, this is it, but I had the wrong motive too. I wanted to be a star. And
Yeah.
I have absolutely no desire to be a star. I can tell you that. Not when I did my Christian album, I wanted a platform. I wanted a platform. That was all I wanted. I wanted a platform because it really took me 10 years of sobriety till 2015 for me to really be, and I wrote a song right around that time, for me to be unashamed of my history of what I had done. I didn't talk about it. I was embarrassed. But once you get so far away from it and you're such a different person, it's unbelievable. In fact, my demo that I did for Burn Records, I recorded with a gentleman in New York, and I went back to record my Christian demo with him, and I was sober. And the first album, we're smoking weed, doing coke, drinking the whole album, and I come back and I'm straight, and he's like, who is this? He's like, you're like a different person. And once you get so far removed from those bad habits, why would you be ashamed? I'm not
Mhm.
ashamed anymore because it's something I went through, but it's also something that I overcame. So it's not a negative. It's kind of like, it's not a mistake. If you learn from it, it's a lesson. So these things are really worth it.
Yeah,
So
they're like battle scars.
yeah.
Battle scars.
Yeah.
So that Christian album came out in what year?
So that was 2013, 14.
Okay.
So it's been a while. And, I had some really good success. I had so with the Dove Awards, they're like the Christian Grammys. They give like preliminary nominations for categories. And I made it 2 years in a row. First year was for Have Mercy for Inspirational Song of the Year. And then the next year was Christian Country Song of the Year. But it's in this category where there are a number of artists that are considered for it. And then of course it goes down to like 5, and they are the people that everybody knows. So a little person like Amy Lord really didn't have a shot. However, I did get inducted into the Gospel Music Association as a member, which was a very proud moment. And I was at the Dove Awards those 2 years and met some incredible people. And I have a really cool picture of me and Amy Grant, and I think she knew who I was, which was crazy.
Yeah.
So, I mean, there was a lot of fun, but it changed. It changed from about me to about my story and him, just sharing that it's, a lot of my first album that I think really resonated with a lot of people was based upon the fact that I wrote it from the valley. I wrote it from the valley. A lot of other Christian artists, they're on the mountaintop. They're just like, whoa, life is great. God is good. All of this stuff. I wrote it way down in the valley, knowing that God could take me to the mountaintop. In fact, my song, Good Day, which is a fun song, I wrote that song when I was just getting first sober. So some of my songs were written when I got sober. And I was in a mirror doing positive affirmations because I didn't know what to do. Here's this new sober Amy trying to figure out life. So I would look in the mirror and I was like, it's couldn't be a good day. It's gotta be a good day. I know it's going to be a good day. I'm worthy. I'm lovable. I'm capable. And then as time progressed, it was like, it's going to be a good day. And then it became, it's gonna be a good day. And it became this amazing positive anthem, but it was written from this painful spot. And if you listen to the lyrics, it's about spiritual warfare where we are in, dark and light entity battle, that we're in this battle on a daily basis. I have to tell you, like the whole thing with Charlie Kirk, I think that was a really huge example. The song Good Day was written about spiritual warfare. The enemy's trying to bring me down. Keep going. No surrender.
Exactly.
Surrender the bad stuff. Don't surrender and keep going. So I love this. And it really touched me. When we talked about it, I just knew that it was something that people need. There are a lot of people that are hurting in the world and they don't want to admit that they're having the problems that they are. Everybody puts on this, facade that everything's perfect. I can tell you my life right now is not perfect. I know that some of my circumstances right now. They continue to be difficult, but what is your perception of the circumstance? Do you have to try to hide it? No, I don't anymore. I don't have to hide anything anymore because there's nothing that I'm doing in my life that I really need to be ashamed of. And that's a beautiful place when you can, it's a freeing moment when you can truly be honest, when you can not blame others, when you take accountability for your choices, when you are willing to suffer consequences because you've made a bad choice. There's so much humility and growth that comes with that. I am in a way different space, and have some difficult challenges right now, but at the same time, I'm in the best place of my life in so many ways. So
Yeah.
I'm grateful. I've come a long way.
Yeah.
But he's not done with me yet. There's more to my story for sure. And the second album's incredible. I got to get it out there. I just don't know how it's going to happen, but I know it will.
Yeah. Yeah. It will. Definitely believe it will. Keep marching. These conversations fly by. And right now, with our team being super small, my wife and I and one of her team members at her company are doing almost all of the editing. And I'm a perfectionist. So this very hard when we're having these great conversations, it's very hard to be like, okay, I have to start to kind of conclude the conversation, especially when what you just touched on. I don't even know if you want to share that publicly or not, but the story you told me about everything that's gone down with how you and your husband sold everything, moved to another country, and then you had to leave that country and come back to the United States. I don't know.
I can tell briefly what's going on. So I was in a relationship with my now husband, who we are basically separated. So it's a difficult situation. However, he got deported back to Venezuela when we were getting engaged, planning on getting married. We had a business together. Things were fantastic. So he got deported to Venezuela and I was devastated. So I was in a place where I thought, oh my gosh. So I sold my house, packed up absolutely everything, got a 40-foot container, shipped it over to Venezuela, bought a beautiful big house over there, paid cash for it, and was there for a short amount of time, started a business. I was in a band. We were doing great, had an incredible time singing with this band. And his brother got ill and he said, go back, represent my family. His brother since passed. So I'm so grateful that I was able to be with him prior to his passing. But as I was leaving the country, they deported me, which is insane. They stamped my passport, no reentry for 5 years. So, and he can't come back here for 10 years. So, I've been here now 2.5, almost 3 years. I have, with the help of my father, bought a home and, I've got a good job, but it was not easy. When I came back, I had nothing. And I pawned my diamond ring. I started doing DoorDash so I could get enough money to be able to get a suit so I could go get a real job in my industry and get my resume together. And I literally started from square one again. So I talk to pretty much every day. We are very good friends, but we are realizing that the difficulty of trying to maintain a relationship, we do not have children, but maintain a relationship for another 7 years apart and possibly more based on who knows what's going on with Venezuela if you see what's happening in the news. So I'm just concentrating on me and what I need to do to continue to have that platform that could potentially help people. So it's a struggle. And when I first got here, it was horrific. And we were meeting in other countries for the first couple of years. And then that became just overwhelming, expensive, and challenging. Yeah, it's unfortunate. It's unfortunate, but I am okay. He is okay. Time will tell. We say that, hey, if this, if God puts someone else in either one of our paths that we end up with, then so be it. But if not, then wow, this is a heck of a story. So I don't know what's going to happen. I have no idea.
Yeah. Brought that up just because it's just another example of, you went from talking about how you're happy and you're fine. And I knew that story, so for you to be able to say with complete conviction and honesty that you're fine and you're happy, even though you're in a valley, technically, from, that relationship standpoint. I mean, most Americans, they don't even begin to think about what would happen if they couldn't see their husband or wife for 7 years.
It's very difficult to navigate marriage or relationship from that far away and not be able to see each other. And then, I'm trying to get my life together over here again because I'm forced to. The other thing that's so difficult is every single thing that I worked for my entire life is over there. All of my pictures, all of my yearbooks, all of everything, my music equipment. So I had to start over and it's tough.
Yeah.
But I really am in a great place. I have a great job. I work directly with your business. My boss is amazing. I love the company I work for. I have a little bit of a void with not doing music right now, but I bought a piano and I'm playing and singing and working on some things. So it's always behind the scenes, something going on with music with me. I can't let it just not happen. So definitely some stuff to come.
I've really, really enjoyed the conversation, and I'd like to try to end with a quote or a verse or a lesson. I guess you could say cherry on top for our viewers, our listeners. Anything that comes to mind. I know we covered a lot of ground. There's a lot of value in what we've already discussed, but is anything coming to mind for you?
Wow. Couple of things. I'm a go-getter. So I love Ralph Waldo Emerson, that if your ship doesn't come in, swim out to it. And I believe that, some people, they just sit back and they wait and they're not as effective as they could be if they started swimming because God steers a moving ship. If you're just on the side of the, stuck in the sand, I don't know that that's going to be great. The other thing, think about a ship and you're on a course. If the ship just goes 1 degree, just 1 degree change, goes to a whole new destination. So we have these things in our mind that we've got to make all these big changes. No, the small, significant things that can take you to a whole new course, Very important. Rome wasn't built in a day. You don't have to conquer everything. And then one of my favorites that I just heard Charlie Kirk say it was his favorite too. This too shall pass. And it's not in the Bible, but people think that it is. This too shall pass. So whatever the circumstance is, there will be a point in time that you look back, because hindsight is 2020, and you'll see it clearly for what it was, whether it was, a lesson or whatever the case may be. But it will pass, because we are in a lifestyle that is seasonal and ever changing. And because of that, we need to be ever evolving.
No, that's awesome. It's great because it reminds me of one of you and I's first exchanges in communication. It was, when we were communicating about business. And I think you mentioned that quote, and it goes hand in hand with one of my favorite quotes, which I shared with you at the time. So once you get to the point where you can take those baby steps and make that you can build some momentum,
right?
With that 1 degree of change, you will get eventually to the point where you can burn the ships, right? So more specifically, that saying or quote comes from a true story. I think it was a Spanish Armada coming to a war that they would be fighting. The captain of the ship was informed that the troops were very much in doubt about whether or not they would have a chance to win the battle. And as soon as they got off the ships, the captain said, burn the ships. As you know, if you come to a battle and you burn your ships, there's only one option: success. Right. There's no plan B. There's a lot of contrast there, right? So if you're in a tough spot right now in life and you're listening to this or watching this, start with those baby steps. And once you get to a certain point, if you watch episode 1, that you'll see there's a picture of me when I was like, I look totally different. I was like at least 50 pounds heavier than I am now. But to lose all that weight without any steroids or crazy other supplements or anything like that, it's just a little bit of discipline one day, and you build on that discipline, and you just keep marching, right? Mm-hmm. I couldn't think of a better way to end it. Amy has her website, amylordmusic.com. And then we've got you on Instagram at Amy Lord Music USA. Any other places you'd like to mention for people to find you?
My music is on Pandora, Amy Lord Music Radio.
Well, yeah, we're looking forward to that album.
Where there's a will, there's a way, and I believe it's God's will, because he gave me some incredible songs, and I'm looking forward to sharing them, hopefully inspiring some people that need a little bit of hope.
Well, thanks again. We really,
thank you.
Really enjoyed the conversation. And
likewise, I really appreciate this, and I appreciate your time, and you will be blessed for your time, talent, and treasure. And this is also talent, Justin, on your part. It's time and talent, because you came up with this amazing concept, and that's a talent. And so I believe that you're going to be rewarded greatly, and hopefully we can continue to help expand the circle of people who are involved with No Surrender.
We're going to keep pushing and doing everything we can to get these episodes out, even though we're working 7 days a week. I'm not going to lie, Andrea and I, how are we going to get this thing ready? I'm a perfectionist, and she's worn out. And as you just told the story about the valley, you've been marching through, like every couple marches through valleys, but at the end of the day, being honest about an apology and getting over that hurdle is critical. I think Elon Musk says that failure has never been an option, because he won't ever give up, and eventually you win if you don't give up.
Fall down 7 times, get up 8.
All right. Well, thanks again.
Thank you.
All righty. Have a good one.
Bye.
Bye-bye.